Hi there, everybody. It's your Guns Magazine editor, Brent Wheat, and you can probably tell we're live. We're recording this at the 2025 SHOT Show. This guy you've probably seen in Guns Magazine. His name is Alan Garbers, and he's one of the writers I brought on board as a new editor. And Alan has a lot of interesting stories, and since he was here at the SHOT Show, I said, let's sit down and talk about some of your stories. So, Alan, welcome to the podcast studio. I think this is the first time you've ever been on the podcast, isn't it?
We did one audio only a couple years ago.
Okay. Well, today we're going to answer all the questions about Alan Garbers. We're going to talk about your favorite topic, which is you, and hopefully let our readers and listeners and viewers know a little bit more about you. So, first of all, you do something that I don't understand. You like to go hunting rattlesnakes, which is kind of strange, but you've offered to take me, and one of these days I might take you up on it. But let's get to your basic background. We met in Indiana.
Yes.
I still live there. You moved back to your where you used to live, near Prescott. So talk a little bit about that and your early history and why you're writing about guns.
Well, I've always enjoyed guns ever since I was in the military, and even prior to the military. I was in the Coast Guard. My brother-in-law was kind of a mentor, and he took me out hunting, and he gave me a .22 rifle. And he was pretty much the only relative I had that would do that kind of thing, so I owe him a lot. But we used to live in Arizona, and I really enjoyed rattlesnake hunting because it was a means to make extra money for things that I couldn't afford normally. So,
that's pretty desperate.
Yeah, I mean, well, it's every rattlesnake at the time I considered every 4 inches to be a $20 bill to me.
Oh,
so,
okay.
It was I could make stuff out of it. I could make hat bands and belt buckles and purses and that kind of stuff. So, it was a means to. I like collecting Indian artwork, like Kachina dolls and Navajo rugs and that kind of stuff, and I was able to take those rattlesnake items and take them around to the trading posts in Arizona and trade them for things that I liked.
Makes sense.
So that's what got that started. And so I've always loved the West ever since I could remember. I remember I used to have a big wall of postcards when we would go on vacation out to California and Colorado and Arizona, and I just would dream about the day that I could go back to those places and explore more. So when we got married, that's what we decided. Diana and I decided we were going to move out west. Was at the time we were living in Florida, and that just started the whole process. And I just love the history of the West. And, when I got introduced to Louis L'Amour novels when I was in high school, that just opened up a whole other field. And of course, you can't have a Louis L'Amour novel without shooting and guns, so it just reinforced everything.
Yeah.
So now I like to try to share those stories. If I can find a real story with real guns that really happened, that just makes it so much more interesting for the history to come alive when, like, this gun was there, or it could have been there, or this is the type of gun they use. So I want to share that with the readers when I'm doing that kind of stuff.
Well, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to bring you on board, because you are a subject matter expert. Your cowboy action name is Choya?
Choya, yeah.
Choya. I said it right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's I think the first story you ever did for me was talking about cowboy action. That's a big passion with you. Talk a little bit about it and how you got involved.
Well, I always wanted to do it, but I could never afford it when I was younger. And so when I sold my first book, which you read, I finally had enough money that I could buy the guns, because it does take 2 pistols, a rifle, and a shotgun. And the premise of Cowboy Action Shooting is you are in competition, it's timed, you're shooting at steel targets that aren't very far away, but you're trying to shoot them as fast as you can with the 4 guns. So the 2 pistols, the rifle, and the shotgun. And depends on how much you want to dress up. You can be, like for me, I shoot classic cowboy, which means there's a list of items that I have to have on my person to compete in that category, and I have to shoot my guns in a specific manner to shoot in that category, and my guns have to be a certain time frame. So that's why I chose it. I just thought classic cowboy was a better what I wanted to be. Is I have to wear certain clothes. I have to have guns from pre-1840, or my rifle from pre-1840, and just the style of it just intrigued me because I wanted to live the Louis L'Amour novels that I read as a child.
And now that we get right down to it.
Yeah. That's basically it. That's I wanted to be, Tell Sackett, or I wanted to be, one of the heroes in his stories. So when I'm up there for that little brief 15, well, my times aren't that short. For that 30 to 60 seconds that I'm in a stage, I'm living those novels.
I get it, because our followers know that I just got back from my first horseback mountain lion hunt, actually out near your house.
Not far,
and,
yeah.
I got to say, I'll admit it, you get on the horse, you got your 6-gun, it's like, this is everything I ever wanted to be, and it's pretty magical. Now, as Roy Huntington has pointed out, I don't have to buy the horse, shoe the horse, shovel after the horse, or any of that, but getting a taste of it is pretty darn cool. So I can see the attraction to the whole cowboy action thing.
It is very fun, and then we also have the side matches, the long distance stuff. So I get to shoot a Sharps rifle, which that's just a thrill right there to me. It's a piece of artwork, the one that I have, and then to shoot it with open sights out to long distance and hear that 500 grain bullet hit steel out at a far yardage is just a thrill. As you shoot it, and then a couple seconds later you hear that tink.
Yeah.
So you got to get over that. You need to keep shooting. You can't just wait for the tink. You got to keep shooting, and otherwise your time goes up. But it's just a lot of fun, and then the people in it, they're all wanting to do the same thing.
Right.
Their names, their aliases are usually some character in some John Wayne Western or some Louis L'Amour novel or something like that. So they're all wanting to do the same thing, and they're dressing up and they're having fun. And
I bet there's a number of takeoffs on Augustus McCrae, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. Gus. Yep. Yep, and him and his I think he had an 1860 Henry rifle, if I remember right, in the movie.
Yeah, that seems right.
Yep.
So if somebody's interested in getting started in cowboy action, I do remember that's what we talked about during the audio-only podcast. But, I've kicked it around, and I've really kicked it around now that I've spent some time on the horse. How do people get started? I know they got to have 4 guns, but talk beyond that.
Well, I would say don't get out. Don't go out and buy any guns. If you're interested in cowboy action shooting, that is probably the worst thing you can do, because you're going to have preconceived notions. I tell new people this all the time. Don't buy anything till you go to a couple matches. Find a club that has a match. Go to it and watch the first time. If that's something you want to do, then say, hey, I'd like to try this. And people at the place will say, hey, I have guns that either I have in my car or I can bring with me next time. You can try them out. So that way you're getting to try the stuff before you make a purchase, because what the problem I had was I had preconceived notions. I knew I had all my guns where I could go play. So I went and bought 38 357 revolvers, 38 357 rifle, and a non-externally hammered shotgun. I spent a ton of money, got the holsters and everything, got there, and I'm seeing these other guys that are competing as classic cowboy. I'm like, that's what I want to do. It's like, what do I have to do that? Oh, you have to have 40 caliber or larger pistols. Your gun has to be made before 1880, and you can't use this shotgun. You have to use an externally hammered shotgun. It's like, oh, I just spent this $3,000 for nothing, so now I need to start over. So that my recommend is you go to a match, go to a club, talk, ask questions. People will be shoving guns in your hand and saying, do you want to try this? Come up here and do this. Give it a try. And that way you can make a determination before you spend a penny on what you want to do.
Yeah.
And as far as clothing-wise, it's very easy. If you're just starting out in an age-based category, jeans, boots, a button-down shirt is pretty much the only requirements you have just to get started. You probably want to buy a hat. Not a baseball cap, but a cowboy hat. So you're not getting the hot brass down your shirt, because I can tell you that's painful.
Yeah.
Ladies, same thing. They're very minimum requirements. And SAS, which is I belong to, Single Action Shooting Society, is very lady oriented. There's a ton of women in it, and they're probably more competitive than the men are as far as that goes.
What?
Yeah, I mean that's my wife's goal is to beat me in everything I do. So
Yeah.
when she was doing it, that was her goal, is to beat me. So and then there's a lot of I got to admit I'm not that fast, and there's a lot of women that do beat me. So, but it's a very family oriented because there is no monetary gain if you win. All you get is bragging rights. You're competing against yourself, and there is no Cadillac at the end of the day. There's no Silverado that you get to take home.
Yeah.
On some of the bigger matches, you might get a trophy. That's it. So the top shooter has no reason not to help the bottom shooter.
Yep.
You know, they'll come up to you, hey, if you do this, you'll go faster. If you try shooting like this, you'll do better. You know, change your transitions. You know, do this in your transitions and you'll be faster. So it's all about trying to help the other guy. It's not cutthroat. It's I want to help you improve. So
Yeah.
it's a good family-oriented shooting contest, and you become familiar with guns. So if you're wanting to, I mean, I see women that want to learn to do self-defense. You know, what you learn with a revolver can translate into any other type of gun. You're learning not to be afraid of the firearm. You're learning recoil. You're learning sight picture. And even if you for self-defense, there's no reason you can't use a single-action gun for self-defense. I mean, it worked for hundreds of years. Why wouldn't it work now?
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's just a good way to become familiar with guns, and it's a ton of fun.
Yeah. And I will say that I've not participated, but I've talked with a lot of folks. I've kind of taken that half step.
Yeah.
And I will say they're all extremely passionate, and they are very interested in including or bringing new people into the fold.
Yep.
So if you're thinking about it, you need to go do it. So, SAS, how do people find out about SAS?
I think you can look up, I think it's sasnet.com.
Yeah.
Takes you to the website. And then if you have questions, if you just want to learn a little bit, there's a forums. I think you have to go to one of the links where it takes you to the forums, and then you can just get into conversation with people. And the people on the forums will be very passionate and want to help you out and probably give you too much advice like I do, and you'll just learn stuff. And if they know that you're new and you ask questions, they will inundate you with help. And they'll even tell you, hey, where are you living at? You know, you didn't post where you lived at. Why don't you come out to this match? You know, since you live nearby, why don't you come out? I'll supply the bullets, I'll supply the guns, I'll supply the leather. Come on out and give it a try.
Yep. Well, it sounds really fun, and I get it. And of course, you'd be willing to help folks too if they reach out to you.
I have offered many times. I even put on some of our local websites that I will help you if you don't know how to reload, if you don't know how to cast bullets. Hey, come on out, and I will teach you everything that I can teach you, so you can be successful in doing this. Because at a match, you do go through roughly 150 rounds of ammo at every match. And so if you've got a family member, that can add up. So you want to get into reloading, and I like casting my own bullet. So that helps lower the cost, and it's kind of like a little zen time when I'm out there casting and reloading.
That's what everybody says. Well, switching gears, we already talked about rattlesnake hunting. I'm intrigued. You explained why you do it, but talk about how you actually do it, because it sounds interesting. You might get me out there one of these days.
Yeah, I mean, the most productive time is in the spring and the fall when they're what we call the laying out period. So rattlesnakes will go back to a den site where they went to as offspring, and during this, as in the springtime, they'll come out and lay out in front of wherever this den is, where there be a crack or a cave or something like that. And they'll lay out there. It's still too cold in the night for them to actually leave the den site, but they want the protection of the den, because once it gets cold, a rattlesnake, like any reptile, is cold-blooded, so they can't move real well. So they want that protection of the cave. But when the sun comes out, they want to get out there and get that sun, and maybe get a mouse or a bug or something that's going by to eat, and then be able to go back into that protection at night. So that's the laying out period. So that's the most productive time. If you know where den sites are at, you can go out there and you can get a lot of rattlesnakes within, there are in Arizona, there's 13 different varieties of rattlesnakes or species of rattlesnakes. 4 of them are protected, so you can't kill those. But the rest, they are just like going fishing. You can only take so many of them. You have a limit of this particular, of this style of, or species of rattlesnakes you can have. So that's the most productive time. Otherwise, once the summer starts warming up, they leave the den site and they go out hunting, and they hunt independently, and so they could be anywhere. They are more of a nocturnal hunter because if they are out in the sun, the sun can actually kill them.
Yeah.
If they get too hot, their muscles stiffen up, and then they can't move, and then they sit there and get overheated and die in the sun. So during the day, they're probably going to be in the shade somewhere, or hidden somewhere where a cow can't step on them or something like that. Because every critter does love it. They're just like chickens, even though they're venomous.
And they taste like chicken.
Yeah,
of course.
yeah. So every animal that's carnivorous wants to eat a rattlesnake because they are fatty and they're good tasting to them. So like bobcats and javelina and other animals do want to eat rattlesnakes, so they got to protect themselves when they can. And then so in the evening time is when they like to come out and they like to sit along trails and that kind of stuff, or out on the road. So that's it. We'll go out looking. We've gone out in the desert at night with headlamps looking and get them that way. We might even will find them on the road. If you find a road that doesn't have a lot of traffic on it, they'll be out crossing the road or laying on the road and looking. They're just trying to warm up on the gravel or the blacktop, or just crossing it. And that's now I won't say productive because you could spend hundreds of dollars in gas, but it is fun to go out and try to find them.
Yeah.
And
so once you get the rattlesnake and you say, I want that snake, what do you do? How do you shoot them? Do you hand to fang combat, or
Diana won't let me. Diana's my wife. She refuses to allow me to do any type of hand-to-hand combat. But like if it's at denning time, we're in a legal area, not on a road. I use a 22 with the little 12 gauge shot in. You can buy CCI and Winchester shot shells, and I shoot them in the head, and that's enough to. I mean, they're not going to stop. This is a fallacy. They don't just die, stop moving instantly. The brain's dead, but the body's going to keep moving. So if you keep shooting them until they're not moving, there's not going to be any snake left.
Wow.
So I shoot them in the head, and then I have a snake tongs, which I can grab them, and then I cut the head off with something where I'm still not getting close, because I made this promise to Diana that I wouldn't touch them until the head is off.
Okay.
So I hold them with the tongs, and I cut the head off with a machete or some long-handled device, and then I take them back to the truck. So at a den site, I'll use a 22 with snake shot. If I'm out looking somewhere and it's a place where I can't shoot, if I'm around houses or something like that, I actually have a ski pole that I'll use the snake tongs to grab them and restrain them to the point where I can use a ski pole and then crush their head.
Really?
Yeah,
okay.
And then I keep that ski pole on their head and then cut the head off with the machete. It's kind of a delicate balancing act. Trying to keep all the apparatus, at hand while I'm killing it. But I actually like that way a little bit better, other than the danger of, hey, it's still, it's not happy with me that I'm trying to crush its head.
Right.
It's trying to, hey, you big mean human, I'm trying to bite you. But luckily I got my tongs and I'm holding it out at a distance. So, I mean, that way there, I'm not getting any type of bullet holes. But that's one thing I don't like. When I take other people with me, they get all excited and they're shooting at the...
It's a rattlesnake.
Yeah. And then they're shooting at it from 20 feet away. And I'm like, well, you got your first rattlesnake, but we probably can't use that hide because now you've perforated all the entire hide. But it is fun. On a lot of them, it's just cutting the head off, throwing them at the back end of the truck, and then I get them home and freeze them, and then skin them out later. Probably the most recent fun I had was last fall. A couple of us went out, and I was looking for. I knew a spot that had a downed cottonwood tree, and as I know you and I talked earlier, I collect cottonwood roots to trade to the Hopis. So I was going there looking for those cottonwood roots, And I told the two guys, I said, hey, I just want to run in here for a brief minute to look for these, see if these cottonwood roots are exposed any better from the wash. And as I'm getting out of the truck, there's a rattlesnake not 20 feet away. So I hurry up and grab my stuff, and I get him. So as I'm getting the cottonwood roots, the two other buddies that went with me, they went up into the rocks, and I think we ended up finding 3 or 4 other Arizona black rattlesnakes up in the rocks that day. So that was a very worthwhile effort to get the cottonwood roots because we got so many snakes, and then we went out and we found a couple more.
Wow.
So
it makes for a good day.
Yep, it was. Oh yeah, they were. The one guy had never been rattlesnake hunting before, and he was thrilled. That was his first. It was his first time. So
well, I'm going to have to put that on my bucket list, and I got to ask you because you would know, you've got experience. I've always heard the rattlesnake can still bite even after the head has been severed. Is that true?
Yeah, if you want to mess with the head will be sitting there opening and closing, just from muscle reaction. It's no longer thinking; it's just muscle reaction. So yeah, you don't want to mess with the head. That's why I made the promise to Diana. I said, I'm not going to pick it up till the head's off because I want to eliminate that factor. And that's if you listen to some of the biologists that tell you about the dangers of rattlesnakes. They said most women get bit in the ankles because when they're out jogging, they'll be jogging down a trail out in the woods. And they said that trail, when you're not on it jogging, is a great highway for mice and rodents. So the rattlesnakes will sit up next to it, hidden somewhere, waiting for one of the mice or rodents to go by. And then here's this woman running by in her shorts, and so she gets bitten in the ankle. They said now most guys get bit in the hands because we're too stupid to leave stuff alone.
I was going to say, because we're messing with it, right?
Yeah, we want to go out. Ooh, hey, look, there's a snake. I want to play with it, or I want to do something with it. So, even alive, of course, they can bite you, and they mainly want to get you to leave them alone. They don't want you to mess with them. They don't want to use venom on you. So, unless you're really messing with it, if you're just casually walking by or something, they're probably not going to inject any venom. It's going to be a dry bite. They just want to scare you and say, hey, leave me alone, go away. Because that's what they do with other animals that aren't out to eat them. It's like, just leave me alone. Now, if you continue to pester them, if you don't want to acknowledge what they're telling you, then they're going to start saying, hey, I need to kill you. I want you to go away and die, leave me alone. Then they're going to start injecting venom. So, like I say, when you cut off the head, it can sit there and still be biting, and it can still inject venom, as the sacs are right up there in the back of their throat or something like in that area.
Yeah.
So that's when I crush them. At that point, when I crush the skulls, all that stops. But like I still don't pick them up. I cut the head off, and then I usually use my tongs to throw the head somewhere that somebody just casually is not going to just be driving along and say, hey, look, that looks like a rattlesnake head.
Because we're guys and we got to play with it.
Yeah. So I'll throw it off into the weeds or something like that, or bury it where nothing can get a hold of it.
Yeah. Well, I was just sitting here thinking that you used to live in southern Indiana, and I've actually had more snake encounters with rattlesnakes in Indiana, even though we've got 2 in the state, but only 1 in the southern part, the timber rattler, and those are big, fat, heavy-duty things, but in our state they're endangered and protected. But I'm lucky so far. I've had only, I think, 1 very distant encounter with a rattlesnake out in your area. But part of that is because I'm usually out there in cooler weather.
Yeah.
So I've not had that. But a question I do get a lot of times when we're talking about hunting anything, and I don't care if you're talking squirrels, there will be somebody that will say, well, you shouldn't do that because they're endangered and you're ruining the ecosystem. Rattlesnakes, they're not endangered, right?
No, I mean, we have 4 of them in Arizona that are protected because they're less populations. They're kind of, I won't say endangered, but they're minimum population. So they don't want you to kill them.
Yeah.
So like I say, just like anything else, they're protected. Now the rest of them are regulated, what you consider regulated. So you can kill them just like you can go fishing. You can only keep so many bass. You can only keep so many, any type of fish you want to pick. You can only take 1 deer. You can only take 1 elk. So they are regulated, not protected. Now, like I say, those other 4 here in Arizona, we've got 13 varieties, and those are actually protected. You're not supposed to kill them, and those are down in Arizona. Those are down in the southeastern side of the state, so nothing that I generally have to worry about.
Well, and one question, I've spent a lot of time at Gunsight, which is near you, but I've always heard the Mojave Rattler is less populated, but it's like one of the worst in terms of the venom, right?
Supposedly the toxicity of the venom is supposed to be worse, but yet I've also read books that said it's no worse than any other rattlesnake. But it is a great thing to say because people want to buy stuff made out of Mojave rattlesnake. So, but around me, the Mojave is the most common that I find.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. I find them probably 3 to 1 over every other rattlesnake, and they make a beautiful. They have a beautiful pattern to them, beautiful coloring, green and yellow, or not, excuse me, green and pinkish is the colorings I get on them, and you get a good snake, and boy, that stuff sells instantly. And another one that we have around us, which I'm surprised, I would think they would find a lot out there at Gunsight, would be the Arizona Black, because that's more of I found in a timber type region.
Yeah.
And but those can have, supposedly those can also have like a chameleon type effect, so they can change their coloring to match their surroundings. Yeah, so if I find one of those, they're generally kind of a snake that nobody really wants product made from them unless I find one that's in a blue phase. If it's a blue colored, almost a turquoise blue, you have to use your imagination a little bit when I say turquoise blue, but that will sell instantly. If I have a hat band made out of one of those, it sells. I know it's a goner. As soon as I get it made, I know somebody's going to buy it. Because it's going back to the Cowboy Action Shooting, a lot of the cowboy shooters around the country, they want rattlesnake hat bands. So when I get one made, I post it on the forum, and usually it's sold pretty fast.
Oh, I can imagine. And what's something like that go for?
I generally sell like the hat band with the skin for around $100.
Okay, well that's fairly reasonable for what it is, and the fact it's an animal that could kill you.
Yeah. And then I don't know if you got that hat band that I brought you.
Yeah. I meant to grab it. It's right behind me, but it looked odd jumping up.
Yeah. So along with using the skin, I also take the carcass. If it's a big rattlesnake, like 30 inches or larger, I take the carcass, and I soak it in water out in the sun for probably a week or two. And that just turns the meat into a slush and leaves the bones, and then I flush it. And then I have all those bones. I clean those bones in peroxide, and then I string them like beads, just like the hat band looks like the skeleton of the snake with beads and the vertebrae all running in one direction. So I can get quite a few of those out of one snake if everything works right.
Yeah.
And those are popular as well. And it's just another way to continue using the snake. I mean, no part of the snake gets wasted. If you want to eat the meat, you can eat the meat. If the snake's too small, then, well, I can tell you the javelinas behind our house
are well fed.
Yeah, they're well fed. And I've actually seen, we got ground squirrels, and they'll come up and they'll grab those snake bodies after they dry it out a little bit, and they'll sit there and eat them.
No kidding.
Yeah, they're little cannibals. They want to. They like that meat.
I thought they were vegetarians.
Yeah.
So I guess not. Well, you do eat the meat though?
I have eaten it. I don't. If somebody wants it, then I save it for them.
Yeah.
But it tastes like frog legs to me.
Yeah.
And I'm not a big
Which
fan
everybody
of
says tastes like chicken. But
yeah.
I've actually eaten rattlesnake, and that was exactly what I was going to say. It kind of reminds me of frog legs.
Yep.
There's that little hint of it's not chicken.
Yeah.
It's not bad,
Yeah.
but it's just if you were expecting chicken or even white meat fish, it's not quite there. It's something a little bit different, but it's not bad.
Yeah, and there's not that much meat. Everybody looks at a rattlesnake carcass and say, "Oh, look, it's that big around. Look at all that meat." It's not. That's just a webbing between the rib cage. But the rib cage goes the entire length. So you got basically be the tenderloins on a deer running down the back of the rattlesnake. So you get on a big snake, you get a long piece of meat the size of a pencil running the length of the snake. So that's basically the only meat that's on there. So not a whole lot. But I do recommend if you're out in Arizona and you want to try a rattlesnake, the Rustler's Roost down in the Phoenix area, they sell it by the serving.
Really?
And I think they call it rattlesnake bites. And so I mean it's a very popular restaurant. It's a very family oriented, and they have different things going on for the kids. But yeah, they serve it, and if you go down there, you'll always see somebody getting a plate of the rattlesnake. It's fried up and breaded.
Yeah.
And so it's quite popular down there.
And it tastes like chicken.
Yeah.
Well, before we wrap up here, as I said at the top of the interview, we're at the 2025 SHOT Show in the FMG booth, FMG Publications, of course, being Guns Magazine, American Handgunner. You write for both. Okay, this is kind of a loaded question, but any articles that you've had published in either one that is your personal favorite?
Oh, man. Probably the Copper Queen Colts. Because I would still love to get a Copper Queen Colt. Because they were sold to the Copper Queen mine down in Bisbee, Arizona at the turn of the 1900s. So that's always kind of like, if I get a gun, I got to save it for the Colt archive letter. But that was something for the people that are listening, that the Copper Queen mine had its own mercantile. So that mercantile was available to anybody. You didn't just have to be you didn't have to work for the Copper Queen. So the ranchers and the townsfolk, they could all go to that mercantile owned by the store, and they did. And the mercantile, which they had several branches of it in different mining towns, they would order Colts in and Winchesters, and they had a list. I found a list in the Bisbee newspaper from the day, and of course Colt had very good records, and even to today, you can, if you have a Colt and you have the serial number, you can send that serial number in, and for $100, the Colt Archives, not Colt, the Colt Archives, will send you a letter when it was shipped, how, what configuration was it shipped, was it blued, was it nickel plated, what type of grips it had, all that. So my goal at some point is to get a Copper Queen Colt where this says it went to the Copper Queen Mercantile.
Very cool. Well, I'll try and remember to link that. And anything else before we get done here, Alan?
And I can't think of anything. Just hopefully there'll be more articles to come about stuff like that.
Yep, exactly. Found any cool cowboy guns? We're only on day one of the show when we're recording this, but found anything just yet you can't live without?
Oh, man, there are just so many things that that I would like to have, but the budget just won't allow it.
That's why we became gun writers, right? So we could afford stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, well, that's cool. I'm not exactly sure if we're going to make this into a podcast episode or we're just going to do a video and audio thing. But whenever this surfaces, whether it be later today or a month from now, make sure you check out gunsmagazine.com and some of Alan's articles. And also, you've written for Tom and I believe Guns of the Old West, right?
Yes, the Guns Magazine publication, Guns
of the Old
yeah.
West. Yeah.
Yep.
So check that out, and we'll have more probably I almost said. Yeah, we're going to have more from the 2025 SHOT Show. So Alan Garbers, writer for both publications, appreciate you joining us. And
Thank you.
One of these days you're going to get me out on that rattlesnake hunt.